my name is Joy Restoven, and I'm the Executive Director at Survive It. Welcome to Fearless Fridays. Today I'm excited to kick off a new mini-series within our Fearless Friday series called What I Know Now. So within that mini-series, we'll have caregivers like myself, patients with active disease who have been fighting their cancer for a number of years, and also survivors. And we thought that, by sharing what we learned in retrospect, it's kind of like I wish I knew then what I know now. And so to kick things off, I put myself through this exercise, which was not easy to do. First and foremost, because I have a really hard time picking my favorites or narrowing things down. Like, I don't have a favorite color. And so to look back on such a monumental life event for me, and an experience that really changed the course of my life, and thinking about what lessons I learned, it was relatively hard to do. But also considering the fact that I'm not done learning. I'm still learning things that I went through with my dad back then, and how they are affecting me now, and how they're affecting the work that I'm doing here at Survive It. And so I don't think that we ever stop learning, I don't think that we should. A bit of a disclaimer is just kind of, this is where I am today. This is where I am 4 years after losing my dad. And so for me, I wanted to break it down into kind of two different categories per se. One, since I'm a bit of a type A personality, I wanted to share just a quick 2 things that you can actually do as a caregiver right after a diagnosis, or if you're just seeing this for the first time. And then kind of shifting towards the emotional and spiritual side. Not that one is more important than the other, but I know what it's like right after that diagnosis. It's kind of a whirlwind, right? So much information is coming at you. You've got to make decisions, and you're just in a place that you've never been before. And so the first thing that I wish I knew then that I know now are the importance of having broad molecular profiling. So for me, if I were to do this again right now with the knowledge and experience that I have, if my loved one were diagnosed at stage 2B or later, I would demand that my loved one receive broad molecular profiling. I'm not a medical expert, but I have been working here at Survive It for the last 2 years. I am privy to the information, precision medicine, and what kind of role that can play in your life and shaping your treatment strategy. And the second thing to check off of your list is to get a qualified second opinion. There are so many different types of cancer, especially with precision medicine coming online. We're diving deeper into different cancer diagnoses. And so especially if you're seeing a general oncologist, there's just too much information. And so go talk to an expert in that type of cancer. If you need help finding who that is, feel free to reach out to us at info@surviveit.org, and I would be happy to help you with that. And so moving into the emotional side of things, the spiritual side of things, and kind of the bigger life lessons, I think to sum it up is that even in the midst of a horrendous experience and disease like cancer, in the midst of suffering, I know this is going to sound ridiculous for you, those of you that are watching that are right there in the midst of it right now, is that there are tiny gifts along the way. And in retrospect, I can certainly see now that there were gifts along the way. And so just a couple of ones that came to mind for me. For those of you that are caring for your parent, that was my experience. I was my dad's caregiver. And the reversal in relationship dynamic, it was really interesting. It was beautiful. And I know, my dad was kind of a stoic guy. He didn't really show his emotions. He was a fantastic dad. He was the provider and protector of our family. And I always looked up to him. He always took very good care of me. As soon as he was diagnosed and I became his caregiver, that changed like that. And it happened naturally, which I know is a gift. You know, I speak with other caregivers that are caring for their parents, and sometimes it's not always easy. So if you are in that situation, just know that is a gift. It's beautiful. One of the things to dive a little bit deeper into that is my family, we weren't kind of the open and honest, share your feelings. And so after my dad was diagnosed, we were just shoved into this place of vulnerability. And so I was able to know my dad much better. And that was a wonderful gift that I will always cherish. I know that it can also be, you know, because of pride or just the typical role of that relationship. You know, my dad always taking care of me, and now he was in a position where he really relied on me. I was really grateful for that at the time, and now looking back, I really treasure those moments with him and the ability to care for him. You know, going back to me being a little bit of a control freak, you know, cancer is it can feel like a really helpless situation. And so for me to be able to jump in and to care for my dad the way that I wanted to and I saw fit, because I didn't feel like anyone else could take as good of care of him as I could. And so to be able to be in that role was a tremendous gift. Next, I want to talk a little bit more about that control aspect of things. And while it can be a really good thing, because I absolutely am positive that you have to advocate for your loved one. Many of you probably know that. You learn that pretty quickly after being tossed into the system. You know, the control aspect of it is one thing, but I was also, I know now, in denial of the reality of the situation. I never Googled outcomes, survival rate for his type of cancer, because in my mind, he was too young to die. And we had access to one of the top cancer centers in the world, and I was gonna do everything in my power to make sure that he came back from this. And so I think that denials can sometimes push your loved one, the person that's actually going through cancer, past a limit that they may have. And so I think if I could do things over, what I know now is that there are conversations that need to be had, and they're, you know, they seem impossible when you're in it. And I get that. And that's why, you know, so we're actually working on a resource for caregivers to help facilitate these conversations. But I think just checking in and having really honest conversations about, you know, where your loved one is at, how are they feeling today? Are we going to reestablish our boundaries and our physical limits? And so that would be something that I wish I could do a little bit differently. Another thing that, you know, probably the biggest thing after I lost my dad, I was kind of in a place where I was stuck in the trauma, and I couldn't move past that. I couldn't move past the level of suffering that I witnessed. And I read every book out there. I prayed. I meditated on it in my yoga classes, and it just never came to me. And, you know, the thing that I struggled with was, why does God allow this level of suffering? You know, I think he took it a little bit too far. It's not necessary. And the only thing that I came to is the thought that this suffering exists because, you know, for me as a caregiver, it made the goodbye a little bit easier, because I couldn't watch him suffer anymore. And I know that he was fully sustained by his faith in God. And while the physical pain was horrible, looking back on it, I wonder if, you know, it was worse for me to just watch it and not be able to do anything about it. So for me, after losing my dad, the suffering exists in my mind to make the goodbye a little bit easier. I know that he's no longer suffering. And the last thing is the different roles that God can play in your life. I grew up in church. I never had a relationship with God. I didn't know what that even meant. I had a hard time finding time for myself as the caregiver. I didn't really have much time for that. And to be honest, I didn't necessarily think that I needed it. You know, my sister would come over and hang out with Dad for a little while I went to a yoga class, or I went to see friends. But that wasn't my priority. My priority was him, and I just wanted to be with him all the time. And so my spiritual life was kind of lacking, you know, if I'm going to be honest, because I didn't make it a priority, and I was kind of mad at God for putting us in this situation to begin with. You know, I had always heard of God as being the Prince of Peace, and the great physician. And I truly know what that means now, because I was able to experience that. That was the one thing that I did ask God for when I was praying, was I needed peace, that he had this, that he had my dad, and that all of this would be okay. And while I obviously didn't get the outcome that I wanted, I do know that everything is okay. And since my dad has passed, the Lord has revealed himself in a way that he hadn't before. And so it kind of goes beyond spirituality, but what I've experienced in life and what I've seen is that you don't truly know something or know someone until you are in certain circumstances. And so I am grateful that I know the Lord the way that I do now. That's just something that I would like to impart on you all. So as I said, this is just the beginning. We'll have survivors, other caregivers, patients on to talk about what they know now. And I hope you guys enjoy it. If you need any support, if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to email us at info@surviveit.org. Until next time, stay strong and live fearless.